You know how people say love makes you blind? They're wrong. Love doesn't blind you. It makes you see everything too clearly, but you keep pretending you don't. You notice the late replies, the new cologne, the sudden smiles at texts that aren't from you. But you tell yourself, he's tired, he's stressed, it's just work. That's what I did, until the night I found the lipstick. A shade called Crimson Desire. Not mine, not my brand, not even close. That night, our anniversary dinner turned into something else. The night I stopped being his wife and started becoming myself again. The morning of our anniversary, I woke up earlier than usual. I had planned everything down to the smallest detail. The reservation at our favorite restaurant, the beige silk dress he once said made me look like the calm after a storm, the perfume he gave me on our first anniversary. I wanted to believe that after 7 years together, we could find our way back to that warmth again. I even baked the little chocolate cake he loved, the one with imperfect frosting and my messy handwriting that said "Forever Us." He was already dressed when I came downstairs, his tie perfectly aligned, his phone glued to his hand. "You're up early," he said without looking up from the screen. "I wanted to make something special," I replied, placing the cake on the counter. He gave me a small, distracted smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. It used to be different. He used to notice everything about me. If I cut my hair, he'd compliment it before I even asked. If I wore a new shade of lipstick, he'd grin and call me his favorite view. Now, he barely looked. But I ignored the ache. I told myself love was about patience, not proof. That evening, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time, fixing my hair again and again. I wanted to look like the woman he once chased through the rain. When he walked into the room, he paused for a moment. "You look nice," he said softly. "Just nice." That word felt like a dull blade. "Ready?" I asked, forcing a smile. The restaurant smelled of roses and candles, exactly like the night he proposed. I had chosen it for nostalgia, hoping the memories would soften the distance between us. We sat across from each other, the candlelight flickering between us like a small, fragile heartbeat. "Happy anniversary," I said, raising my glass. He smiled a bit too quickly. "Happy anniversary, love." I wanted to reach across the table, to hold his hand, to feel that familiar warmth, but something in his eyes stopped me. He was there, yet somewhere else. His phone kept lighting up, face down on the table, buzzing with messages he ignored but couldn't silence. "Work?" I asked gently. He nodded. "Yeah, just some last-minute stuff." I nodded too, pretending to believe him, pretending that the word stuff wasn't another woman's name. The dinner felt like a play we both had memorized too well. Polite smiles, short answers, long silences filled with ghosts. He asked about my work, about my friend Sarah's baby shower, about the weather. Not once did he ask how I was. It hit me then. How easy it is to live next to someone and still feel completely alone. When we got home, he seemed restless, like he wanted the evening to end quickly. "I'm going to shower," he said, already unbuttoning his shirt as he walked away. His jacket landed on the chair by the door, carelessly thrown like everything else that used to matter. I started cleaning up the small mess we'd left behind. The keys, the mail, the empty glasses. That's when it happened. The small Sephora bag slipped from his jacket pocket and hit the floor with a soft thud. I smiled instinctively. Maybe this was it, his surprise gift for me. Maybe I'd been wrong all along. Maybe he still cared. I picked up the bag, heart fluttering, and peeked inside. The lipstick case was beautiful, gold and elegant. I pulled it out slowly, twisting the cap open. The color glistened under the light, deep crimson, bold, wild, seductive, the kind of shade I'd never wear. I'd always preferred soft pinks and muted tones, shades that whispered rather than shouted. But this one screamed. Confused, I turned the box over, and a small folded receipt slipped out. I caught it before it hit the floor, smiling at first, until I saw the date, 2 days ago. I frowned. He hadn't mentioned shopping. Then my eyes moved to the printed message. My breath froze. To Claire, "Can't wait to see this on you. Claire." The name hit me like a glass shattering in silence. Claire, his new assistant. The one who laughed too loudly at his jokes when I visited his office last month. The one who always called him Dan instead of Mr. Collins. The one he said was just helping with reports. My fingers trembled around the tube. The air around me felt heavy, cold. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw it across the room. But instead, I just stood there, numb. He came out of the shower minutes later, towel around his waist, humming a tune, as if the world wasn't about to collapse. He saw the lipstick in my hand, and the hum died on his lips. "You opened my gift?" he asked, voice uncertain. "Yeah," I said quietly, my words too calm for the storm inside me. "But I think you bought the wrong color." He froze. For a split second, his face went pale before he forced a chuckle. "Oh, it's, for you. I thought you'd like to try something different." "Different?" I asked softly. "Then why does it say to Claire?" The towel slipped slightly from his hand. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He tried, again and again, to piece together excuses. "It's a mistake. They must have printed the wrong name. Maybe she bought the same one and they mixed it up." Every lie tangled in the next, and I stood there watching him, the man I once trusted with my entire soul, stumble over his own web. For a moment I thought I would explode. I wanted to shout, to demand answers. But instead, something inside me broke quietly, like glass under snow. "Happy anniversary, Daniel," I said, turning away. He called after me, his voice cracking, but I didn't stop. I didn't throw the lipstick. I didn't tear up the receipt. I simply placed the box on the counter and walked to the guest room. That night, I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. The house was silent, except for the sound of the rain tapping against the windows. I thought about every moment we'd shared. The first time he held my hand, the nights we stayed up dreaming of our future, the vows we whispered under fairy lights. And I realized something cruelly simple. Love doesn't die in one big moment. It dies in small pieces every time someone stops choosing you. I closed my eyes and let the truth settle in. I wasn't the same woman who once believed that love could fix anything. I was the woman who now understood that sometimes, love is the very thing that blinds you to yourself. When sleep finally came, it wasn't peaceful, but it was real. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't pretending anymore I knew the truth. And even if it shattered everything, it was still mine, and that somehow felt like the beginning of something new. You'd think after discovering a betrayal, the hardest part would be the pain. But it's not. The hardest part is the silence that follows. The silence of knowing the person who used to protect your heart was the one who broke it. And now, you have to learn how to breathe without them. I woke up the next morning to that silence. Thick, heavy, and unfamiliar. Daniel's side of the bed was empty. He had already left for work, as if the night before hadn't happened, as if a tube of lipstick hadn't ended our marriage. The house felt too big, too quiet. I made coffee just for one and stared at the steam rising, wondering when love had become routine, when we had turned into me and him. I walked past the counter where the lipstick still sat, untouched but burning like a wound. I almost threw it away, but something in me whispered, "Not yet." I opened my laptop instead. I told myself it was just curiosity, the kind that hurts but you can't stop feeding. I typed her name, Claire Evans. Her social media popped up instantly. Smiling face. Red lipstick. That same deep crimson. The caption under one photo read, "New shade, new me." My heart clenched. There was a photo of her at a company gala, standing just a step behind Daniel, his hand barely visible at her waist if you looked closely enough. And I looked. Over and over. I closed the laptop and pressed my palms against my eyes until the burning stopped. Then I laughed, quietly at first, then bitterly. I had spent years trying to be the calm, patient wife, the one who never questioned, who believed that love meant trust even when trust started to rot. I had given him everything, and in return, he gave a stranger a lipstick meant for me. The pain turned into something else that day. Not anger, not yet, but clarity. I realized that I'd been waiting for him to save our marriage, when in truth I needed to save myself. That evening when he came home, he looked surprised to find me sitting at the kitchen table, calm, collected, wearing the same soft pink lipstick I always wore. "You're home early," I said. "Yeah, I had a short day," he mumbled, setting his keys down. The silence between us was unbearable. He opened the fridge, took out a bottle of water, pretended to be busy. I saw her picture, I said quietly. He froze. Who? I tilted my head. Don't insult me, Daniel. You know who. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. It's not what you think. Then what is it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You bought her lipstick. You lied to me on our anniversary. You've been seeing her for months. Tell me what I'm supposed to think. He looked at me then, eyes full of regret that came too late. It was a mistake. I swear, it didn't mean anything. Then why did you keep doing it? I asked. He didn't have an answer. Because there wasn't one. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I stared at the man who once promised me forever, and all I could see was someone who didn't deserve the way I had loved him. I'm not going to fight for you, I said finally. You already made your choice. I'm just making mine. He frowned. You're leaving? I already did, I whispered. You just didn't notice. He tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. The touch that once felt like home now made my skin crawl. I didn't want it to end like this, he murmured. Neither did I replied softly. But endings don't always ask for permission. The next few days were a blur of numbness and small decisions, packing the things that were truly mine, canceling dinner plans with mutual friends, deleting old photos. Every picture of us felt like a lie, every smile frozen over something I couldn't see back then. I moved into a small apartment near the park. It was quiet, plain, and empty, but it was mine. The first night there, I sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes, sipping tea from a paper cup. I cried, but the tears felt cleansing, not weak. I was finally mourning the version of me who thought love meant losing yourself for someone else. Days passed. Daniel called a few times. I ignored the first two. On the third, I answered. I miss you, he said. Can we talk? About what? About us. There is no us, I said simply. There's you. There's me. And there's the space where us used to live. He went silent. I could hear his breathing, shaky, uncertain. I made a mistake, he repeated. Then live with it, I said, and hung up. That night, I opened the drawer where I'd kept the lipstick. I turned it in my hand, studying its shimmer under the light. I thought about throwing it away again, but instead I twisted it open and looked at the color. It was bold, unapologetic, defiant. Everything I wasn't, or maybe everything I had stopped being. So, I put it on. The reflection staring back at me was almost unrecognizable. Not because of the lipstick, but because of the woman wearing it. Her eyes weren't sad anymore. They were sharp, awake. A week later, I decided to invite Daniel for dinner. One last conversation. Closure, not reconciliation. I chose the same restaurant where we celebrated our anniversary, maybe out of irony, maybe out of courage. He looked surprised when I called him. You want to meet? Yes, I said. I have something to say. When he arrived, he looked tired, older somehow. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loose. For the first time, I saw guilt etched into the lines of his face. You look different, he said, eyes flicking to the bold red lipstick I wore. I am, I said simply. We ordered dinner, but neither of us ate much. Halfway through, I leaned forward and said, You should tell her it's over. His fork froze. What? Claire, I said. You should end it. Tonight. He stared at me, searching for anger. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. I know everything, I continued. And I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to thank you. He blinked, confused. Thank me? Yes, I said. Because you reminded me who I am. I spent years dimming myself so. You could shine. I forgot that I mattered too. You broke me, Daniel. But maybe that's how the light got in. He looked at me, eyes wet, voice trembling. So what now? Now? I smiled. Now you live with what you've done, and I live with peace. When the waiter brought the check, I took off my wedding ring and placed it gently on top. His eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. Don't do this, he whispered. We can fix it. No, I said. You can't fix something you chose to destroy. I stood up, picked up my purse, and left. I didn't look back. Outside, the night air was cool, clean, freeing. For the first time in years, I felt light, not because I stopped loving him, but because I finally started loving myself. Later, at home, I stood before the mirror again, that same lipstick shining under the soft light. I smiled and whispered to my reflection, This shade looks better on me anyway. Maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting the pain, but finding beauty in the pieces that remain. He bought that lipstick for his lover, thinking I'd never find out. But I did. And what he didn't realize was that he didn't just lose me that day. He lost the woman who would have forgiven him. He lost the version of me that believed his promises, and as I wiped away the last trace of my tears, I knew one thing for sure: sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't anger or hate. It's happiness, the kind you build all on your own.